I want to share with you a little story about how I came to the realization that in order to make a film about sustainability, you can't hope that the results end up a different way than your processes do. So I set out to make my episode series. I put myself at the center of the series. I wanted to be the main character. The reason for that is I had made documentaries in the past, and I always really struggled with the issue of authenticity. I struggled with the idea of taking other people's words and like conforming them to whatever story I was trying to tell. So I wanted to be, open about my point of view by putting myself in the center of it. But I also put myself in charge of the project completely. I was totally in creative control and productive control. I didn't want to really work with other people. I hired helpers, but I didn't give them any creative control. Now, the way I approached this project was based on the way I had been trained in college and school, on this industry model of filmmaking, where you're supposed to basically produce everything really efficiently, only tell people what they need to know so they'll sign their release forms, and tell them nothing more. Don't involve them in the process because that just wastes too much time. Just get this film made as fast as possible. To be fair, the school that I went to did not really focus on documentary production, which is distinctly different from narrative. This is more of a narrative model where you're just hiring people, and then when the project's over, you let them go. It's very much, the film industry tends to be a very hierarchical place, very competitive. People are competing for good positions, and it can really burn people out quickly. Throughout the project, I treated my director of photography, who was a very generous volunteer, as a tool, as somebody who has to shoot this stuff because I need this stuff shot. And what that resulted in was we ended up on terrible terms, and the footage, a lot of it turned out really poorly because we weren't communicating. Also, I violated the trust of a group that I was hoping to collaborate with. This is a group that is like an anarchist communal type group, and they have a lot of really wonderful ideas about living a radically sustainable lifestyle. The problem is, though, that I went in at them with this whole, you got to sign these forms, and, then we're just going to videotape you whenever I want to. And they were like, you're not really hearing us. We can't accept that. And instead of working with them, I got frustrated with them, and it ended up on poor terms again. In addition to that, many of the interviewees that I interviewed for my episodes kind of got the sense that basically I was looking for people to plug into this preconceived script. And I wasn't really looking for people to tell their stories or really express their point of view. I was just looking for talking heads for my script. And so they were kind of disturbed by that and not really willing to cooperate. The other thing about it that became a problem was that I was so assured that my idea, my preconceived notion of what this lifestyle would look like was correct, that I wasn't at all prepared practically or emotionally for when things went wrong. The scripts were so rigid, and we had a shooting plan to shoot material for these rigid scripts, okay, today we're shooting this part of the script, that when things just weren't working out, I couldn't change my scripts. What I ended up with at the end of this 3-month project, at the end of July, all this footage shot for these scripts that I no longer believed in. The result of all of this is that the project didn't really go so well. By the end of it, when I was actually sitting down to edit together these episodes, I realized I couldn't tell the story anymore. And the scripts were so inflexible that I couldn't really tell any other story with this footage either, unfortunately. So here I was, this was my situation. What could I do? Well, when I reflected on what happened, I realized that a project that purports to be about 100% sustainability, this is a project that's what I claimed that this was about. But in reality, my filmmaking approach was apparently not sustainable. If I kept making films the way that I made this episode series, I would eventually run out of a stock of people who were willing to deal with that. I was exhausting, a base of people to work with. This was my first hint that the nature of sustainability is that it must be holistic. The means must reflect and embody the ends. Holism has this implication that whatever it is we're talking about that is holistic, you can't reduce it to its parts. It has to be considered as this whole system that, has to be considered as a system, not as its parts. So, the whole film production is part of the film product.